Hey everyone, welcome to the live stream. Uh, there's the camera. So this is something new. I am going to use you basically as my buddy double partner, which is something that is extremely useful for people like me with ADHD. Which is if someone is in the room with me or even virtually like you are right now, it helps me to focus. It helps me to complete my task. And I've been struggling quite a bit over this past week to get things done, to start writing my novel. And so my hope is that if you are watching, or if you're watching this even after the fact on the recording of the live stream, that will help me to get things done. So I'm currently writing a fantasy novel. In case you're new and you've never watched the live stream, or any of the other YouTube videos on this channel. I'm Father Roderick. I'm a Catholic priest, and I'm currently writing a fantasy novel that takes place in a magical version of medieval Ireland in the early Middle Ages, so around the 6th century. It's the novel. The work title of the novel is "The Dawn of the Story Mages," and the whole magical system is based on storytelling and the transformative power of storytelling. And the premise of the book is basically, in these early Middle Ages, you had all these saints, these men and women who, according to all these legends, did amazing things and fought with dragons and just did the most amazing miracles. And the premise of the book is, what if it was all true? What if that is really something that they could do? And that power is actually kind of the basis of the magical system. I've been writing since the beginning of the year, so I've been spending about a month plotting and outlining the novel, and I'm currently in the first draft phase. So I've already written a couple of chapters of the, let's say, Act 1. There are 4 acts, around 40 chapters in total. I'm aiming for a total of about 70,000 words. I just came up this morning with an idea for the introduction of my main character, and that's what I'm going to write today. So I won't be continuously chatting, but feel free to ask any questions from time to time. I'll look at the comments stream and see if I can answer your questions. And feel free, of course, to talk amongst yourselves. I'm going to post this also in my Discord server. And in case you want to join my Discord server, I can put a link on the screen if I can find that. I hope the automatic camera movement isn't too jarring. So I'm filming this with my iPhone, and it's using the continuity camera. I think that's how it's called. So it does like the automatic. If I move my head, it will kind of follow me along. And it's kind of the wide angle lens, so everything looks a bit distorted. This is my computer. My keyboard is here. I think it sometimes even shows it. Let me see. So I was going to find let me see the link to the thing. You're watching my computer. Okay, here is the link. So I'll post this in the chat. Let me go back to my writing screen. Here we go. And let me post this here. Join my Discord server. And then there is the link. And you can click on that, and it will that will welcome you to my server. Hey, Jonathan. Good to see you. Well, I'm looking forward to it just as much as you do, in fact. I have no idea if this will ever see the light of day, but I am doing what I can to make that happen. I'm just going to also put this in my announcements on my Discord server. Join me live as I write my fantasy novel. So the idea that I had is, why don't I just do this every time I sit here to write, and just spend, whether it's an hour or 2 hours, it's basically like a work stream So it's not going to be spectacular, a spectacular performance. It's just basically a video of me working. But believe me, it helps. Let's see, now I need to copy the stream and then get shareable link. We'll do that. All right. Publish. I'm not sure if they will see this, but it's worth a try. Hey, Luna. I know, for me, it actually helps because of ADHD. So this is something I discovered relatively recently. In fact, I discovered recently that I had ADHD. I struggled with the symptoms of it for my entire life and never put the pieces of the puzzle together. But I noticed that it was much easier for me to get things done if there was someone else in the room. So for many years, I've had an employee who worked here half time. And at times she would be also at the office here. And I noticed that if I had to do something difficult and I was like, I don't know where to start, if that person would just either help me or just be in the room doing something totally different, might have just have been administration, all of a sudden I could focus. It's like, what is happening? And then I Googled it, and it turns out this is called body doubling, and it's a thing. And apparently it even works virtually. So the fact that I'm doing this on a live stream should, in theory, but of course the proof is in the pudding, should help me focus on the novel. That is, if I don't spend my entire time talking to the chat room. That's so cool to hear, Jonathan. 5 years to write your first novel. Well, congratulations. I might have already asked this, but is there a place where we can read it or buy it? Feel free to plug it in the chat. Oh, this is too funny. Like on my screen, you see this in the middle? It's an image of a squirrel, which is my spirit animal. And it's also going to be the spirit animal of my main character, Ty, who probably also has ADHD. I don't know. It's too funny that there's this squirrel. Oh my God. It's a sign. I'm aiming for a release this year. I'll probably be self-publishing. Or actually, if I want to publish it this year, I have to self-publish. But that's not because I don't appreciate the time it sometimes takes to write a good novel. It's just because I know myself. If this would take longer than a year, I would probably just lose steam. And so having this kind of like this goal, this very fixed goal, helps me to go into hyperfocus and hopefully finish it. And then the advantage, of course, of self-publishing is that you can also go back and, make corrections if necessary. And I don't know. We'll see. All right. Let me go to my page here. And then... So what I'm currently going to write is, hey, Arika. It's buddy doubling. Yeah, I just explained it to before you joined the chat. But it helps me in real life. So I figured it's worth a try doing this online. Plus, it's kind of fun. I mean, it's... Why not? I mean, YouTube offers me the opportunity to go live. And so why not? So what I'm going to write now is, so I've written the prologue, which is currently on my screen here. It's probably too small. Maybe I can make this a bit bigger. Still probably won't be able to read it, but at least you can see the main title here. So I wrote a prologue, which normally I'm not a fan of because it's usually like a lot of info dumping. And sometimes like the Brandon Sanderson prologues and the Wheel of Time prologues, they were just utterly confusing. I had no idea what was going on. You get this avalanche of strange names and weird events, and obviously over time it will start to make sense. But for me, it was always a hurdle to get over. In my case, it's like it's like the opening scene of a James Bond movie. So I want there to be action. I want people to immediately understand that this is about, story magic, and how kind of give an example. No, I don't want to explain it, but I want to show how that works. And I want to introduce the not the real antagonist, but one of the, like the Darth Vader, what Darth Vader is towards the Emperor. So I wrote a prologue, which I've been rewriting too many times, and then I immediately went to chapter 1, which introduces the main character and his brother. So Tai is a monk. Well, actually, he's a novice, so he wants to be a monk. And he and his little brother are in a monastery where these story mages are formed, and where they write in this magical book. And if you read from that book, or if you read a page from that book, what you read becomes a reality, like a portal you can step into. So it's like you can really step into the story, and then that can effectuate things. So there are different degrees of the strength of the story spell, and the ultimate story spell. If you read from the book, the original book, things that happen in the story spell will manifest itself in the real world. So the whole system is still kind of in flux, but that's the gist of it. And I've been struggling one of the reasons that I couldn't write this week was that I felt that the introduction of my main character didn't work. I just did. The guy didn't have any agency. Like there are a lot of other characters that I'm also introducing in this first act, and to me they're all interesting except for Tai. And I think it was mostly because he felt completely passive, and things would just happen to him. And I wanted to obviously introduce some kind of struggle. And so a hero should have both a want and a need. The want is what he wants. It's like Luke Skywalker, who, I don't want to get involved. I know I hate the Empire, but I need to be here on the farm, and maybe I'll hang out with my friends after I'm done working. And that's his immediate want. That's not what he needs. What he needs is to become a hero. What he needs is to learn the ways of the Force. So here in this story, Tai, I did have a want, but it was kind of the same as his need. He wanted to become a story mage. And in order to do that, and that's kind of the whole, most of part 1 of Act 1 is him applying for the admission to the formation of story mages. So you have to go through a number of tests that will show the abbot if you're a good candidate. That test is going to be rigged. It's a big dramatic first action scene in the first act. But then I was like, well, that doesn't make sense, because then you get the call to adventure, obviously. But he already wants to be a story mage. So what more is there for him to move towards? And then this morning, it just clicked. He doesn't want to become a story mage. He doesn't want to become a candidate. Why? Because his little brother is very sickly. His little brother is deaf. And he's got... I don't know, maybe like a chronic bronchitis, or anyway, his lungs are very weak. And so for most of his life, he's been taking care of his little brother because his parents were workers, farmers. And so he always had to look after his little brother. And now they're both in a monastery because their parents were like, okay, well, the monks have medicine. They can take better care of Brendan, that's his name, than we can. And then they tasked Tai to take care of his little brother. That is going to be what holds him back. Because he feels like if he becomes a story mage, he cannot take care of his little brother anymore. Let alone that if he is called to go out of the monastery and go on this big adventure, what's going to happen to his little brother? And I'm also going to depict the monastery as kind of it's not always an easy place to live at, especially because the abbot is actually corrupt, and so it's a dangerous place. And Tai, it feels that the best way to protect his brother is to play it by the rules, to always be the obedient, perfect monk, but also never take any risks. And that's going to be what's holding him back. And then so before I even introduce him in chapter 1, the one that I've written, where it's actually he wakes up and he wants to apply for the test. That's how I wrote it at first. I'm going to introduce him a little bit earlier, where we see his true calling. So in this chapter that I'm going to write right now, we will meet him. The first thing that we see him do is that he's telling a story. So that's giving the reader a promise. Like he is a storyteller. He is a potential story mage. And he just doesn't realize it. And there's a lot that is holding him back. One of the factors is his little brother, who's also there. So he's teaching his little brother how to read, which he, as a kind of a little older novice, has already mastered. He's been trained by the monks, and now he's teaching his little brother. But in order to make that more interesting, he tells a little story. That's how I want my chapter to start. And while he's telling the story, he explains story magic, and something will happen. Actually, there is something that goes on while he's telling the story that shows that he has already some innate story magic. And then that is what did I come up with this morning? I should really start writing, because I start to forget what I came up with. So what did I come up with? I think I took some notes. Let me look that up. So always here on the right side of the screen, where do I point? This here, how does this work? Okay, so this here above my finger is the main window where I have my, that's where I write my story. Then here, where is it? Dude, here, these two windows, the upper window is historical research, because this is historical fantasy. But I do want to make sure that I don't introduce any anachronistic historical errors, where all of a sudden there's stuff that didn't exist yet in the 6th century. And so I do a lot of research while I'm writing the novel, and that's where I jot down all the stuff that I might or may not use. And then the window underneath it is my notes. It's whenever I have an idea, or it's like, oh, I should not forget about this, I write that down in those notes. It's a kind of a clunky system. It's just basically browser based. I write this thing in Google Docs, and then the main window is actually a service called AutoCrit, which I don't know. What I like is that it has a timer and it's got word count and all that, so it kind of works for me. But I could probably also just as well write it in Google Docs. So here, I hope I wrote it down. No, actually I didn't. Or maybe that's in a different. Let's see. I keep adding stuff to the story. Oh, here it is. This is what I wrote. You see, I don't even remember that I wrote this. After the prologue, Tai is teaching his younger brother Brendan how to read. When Brendan complains, he explains why it is so important. Namely, little Brendan, you will be able to tell stories, and stories have magical powers. And he tells the story of how the monks discovered this story magic. So this is a little bit of exposition at the beginning of the book. When the Codex came to the monastery, the monks discovered that angels came to help them write stories for it. This already establishes what happens in the scriptorium, which is going to be a major place later on in the story, because that's where monks and angels work together, and that gives the stories their supernatural power. And because of that, the stories became so powerful that they could actually help people. And then Brendan wants to know how, and then Ty tells a little story. He says that like one day a man came to see the abbot with a bowl asking for milk. And obviously at the monastery they keep sheep and maybe they have some cows and everything. And why was that? Because his wife had died and he needed the milk for his newborn baby. The abbot, for some reason that I still have to invent, doesn't have milk. Or maybe the cow died. I don't know. The abbot then goes to the scriptorium to ask the angels what to do. So he goes to the place where they write the book, and then they hand him a story from the codex, and that story tells the tale of a monk who faced a similar request. And then it's basically a story from the life of Saint Kevin, who lived at Glendalough. It's a pretty well-known story. But the abbot reads the story to the guy who comes to ask him for help. And then when the story is over, the bowl of the man is filled with milk. And so that's how they understand it. Like, oh, if we read from the book, it actually becomes real. And then, of course, Brendan is very surprised. And then they're interrupted by two minor, I call them the Malfoy brothers. So there's these twins, and they're terrible. They are sons of a rich dude, like a chieftain, and he's sponsoring the abbey. He's good friends with the abbot, and he has tasked the monastery to give his twin sons a good education. But because their daddy is so rich, they get all sorts of privileges, and they're very much favored compared to, for instance, Ty and his little brother. And they're terrible. They're super spoiled brats, and they constantly try to lure Ty into, getting disciplined and everything. And later on, there's going to be a scene where Ty will actually save their lives. And then that will have terrible consequences. So I'm going to make life so hard on Ty. And it seems that every time he takes a risk and he does something outside of his comfort zone, he's getting punished for it. So I want to make that barrier to enter on this quest. I want to make that a massive barrier, like really something hard to push, so that we empathize with him, we feel for him. And then when he finally breaks through, because the rug is pulled out the rug is pulled out underneath of him. Is that the way you say it? Then that's going to be hopefully also like something that we can feel, like an emotional moment in the book. All right, this is dangerous for me because I'm talking, but I should be writing. But anyway, now you know what the gist is of this first chapter that I'm going to write, and then I'll have to modify the chapter after that, so that instead of him really wanting to apply for the position of scribe, he will need to be pushed to it, which I think can also be interesting. And that's where the other character, Orla, who is a young sister, and her sister, her sibling, will maybe do that. They will be the ones who will push Ty outside of his comfort zone. All right, I'm going to put on my reading glasses. Can I read the comments? Yeah, there we go. All right. So I won't be talking all the time. I'm just going to write. I'm going to set my timer so I don't overdo it. And let's see if we can do like a total of like an hour. Although I've already right now chatted for about 15 minutes, so I'll read. How do I say that? Deduct that from the total time. So anyway, here we go. So here's my chapter. So it means I'm going to introduce another chapter. How do I do that? That's a good one. Okay, I need to just introduce another chapter. So this is chapter 1. Story magic. Okay, very cool. Now we're going to rename this 2. This is still 3. And this is 4. And this is 5. Oh my gosh, I wrote actually much more than I thought I had. Wow! What is this? Okay, maybe... let's first write. I'm always tempted to go back and then start modifying stuff. That's not smart. Wait, I'm going to put a page break here. No. Here? How does this work? There you go. Turn it. Okay, maybe now. Why does it put the chapter there? That's wrong. Okay, I'm getting... Oh, problem. Ty has to tell a story to his little brother Brandon, but Brandon is deaf. Oops. And then, of course, Ty has developed a sign language with his brother, and Brandon can do a little bit of lip reading. But this is not good. What I can do is he's not going to just teach Brandon to read. He's going to teach this to a bunch of kids, which is actually what happened in those Middle Ages. The monks would often educate the children. This is actually a better opening. The hardest part is always the first sentence of a chapter. I read a tip that said you should always stop writing in the middle of a chapter, so it's much easier to get going. Yeah, that works except for the first chapter. Oh. Clay. Why not? He made them out of clay. Is he sitting at a table, or are these kids just sitting on the ground in a circle next to him in the grass? And placed a couple of clay figures in the center of the I allow myself to write horrible prose. We'll polish later. Uh, uh. In front of him. Children. Maybe I'm gonna let it. Maybe I'm not gonna do the story about the milk. That's kind of a tame story. This is the first chapter, so this should be a magical story. Because again, I want my reader to know what kind of genre they're reading. Plus, I need to, yeah. Oh, I'm gonna tell the story about the about Saint Patrick and the sea dragon or the sea snake. That's a cool story. Okay, you see this? Man. Pointing at a figure of pointing at one. Do you know who that is? The children sitting in a circle around him. One of the children I don't have to explain that they're sitting in a circle. Like this, one of my temptations is to describe each scene as if I'm filming it, because that's my job. I make TV programs. But that's also risky, because then it becomes almost like a movie script, and that's not a book. Raised. One of the children raised. One of the children. Clay figure to observe it more closely. He has a beard, she said. Is it Jesus? No, it's not Jesus. Ty smiled. That's someone who reminds us of him. I'll give you a hint. He plucked a clover on the grass. Would they have called Patrick Saint Patrick in the 6th century? That's a good question. Because Saint Patrick has never been canonized officially, but I wonder if people. This is kind of like one of these moments where I need to do some research, right? Because so Ty is going to tell a story about Saint Patrick. So he made these clay figures. This is an old idea that I discarded, and now I'm bringing it back. So not only is Ty a good storyteller, but he makes these little figurines and then uses that to tell stories. And so he's made a little figurine of Saint Patrick. And the story that he's going to tell these kids is a story about Saint Patrick. But now I'm wondering if so he lets them guess. So who is this? And then one of the kids is like, "It's Jesus." Almost. Yeah, it's someone who reminds us of Jesus. And and then I'm giving you a hint, and then he picks a clover, and immediately the kids are like, "Oh, it's Patrick." But would they say Saint Patrick, or would they say Patrick? I think it's probably Saint Patrick because he was already so famous at the time. Yeah. So actually, so the Margot, you know what I'm up to. This is actually my way of having you as my body doubles, and it seems to work because look, I've already written 3 phrases. That's more than I wrote yesterday. Okay, so I'm just gonna ask Copilot, which is of course not the most reliable source of history, but it usually does a good job in of giving me kind of like an overview. All right, let's do this again. Okay, let's see what it comes up with. Interesting. Interesting. So, St. Patrick was not formally canonized by the Catholic Church, as I said, as he lived before the current laws for canonization were established. However, by the 7th century, he was already revered as the patron saint of Ireland. So while he might not have been officially called a saint in the 6th century, he was certainly venerated and respected for his contributions to Christianity in Ireland. So that's cool. So it means that there are probably writings from the 7th century where we have proof that he's called a saint, but those writings obviously are based on oral tradition, which makes it safe to assume that even before that, people already considered Patrick to be a saint. So it's probably a saint. He. I think he's going to be great with the kids. So he's involving the kids in the storytelling. So instead of him placing the figures, he's going to ask the kids to play out the story. That's what I would do, because then they're involved, right? Can you place Saint Patrick near that? So there needs to be a pool of rainwater, I think. Near that. What is the word for pool? Pool is like massive, right? Near that. Yeah, wet spot that doesn't do the job. How do you call it? This is one of the. that's kind of my handicap, is that English is not my native language, and in Dutch I would have immediately I would have known how to write that, but near that small pool of water. Oh, puddle. Yeah. That's good. Yeah, that puddle of, thank you, of rainwater. Hey, Bobby. Welcome to the stream. So one day, yeah, it's really nice. I've got my co-pilot on the one side of the screen, and I've got the chat room on the other side of the screen. This is amazing. So one day, Saint Patrick was walking along the shore of Lake. Well, what was the name of the lake again? Okay, this is something I have already written down. I'm pretty positive. So search for snake. No. Monster? No. Dragon? Paste. Interesting. Okay. Oh, Quranic. Yeah, there you go. It's Quranic. In log dirg. Suddenly, the water started to move. Let's see, one of the other kids. Suddenly, he noticed something in the water. What's he going to use to symbolize? Oh, he's going to use a piece of rope, because it's a snake. It's a big sea snake. He took a thick piece of rope and placed it in the puddle. It was an enormous. It was Quranic. He probably didn't have a cord tied around his waist. Well, maybe he had, but he's not going to use that as a snake, because it's a, goes all around his waist. So he just has a spare. He's got a satchel and he's got some storytelling gear in there. That's Quranic. The enormous sea snake rose from the water and towered over Saint Patrick. He lifted one end of the rope up. Okay, I need to have more details about this story. Okay. Okay, tell me how Saint Patrick defeated Coranach. The legend of Saint Patrick and Coranach is a fascinating tale from Irish folklore. Coranach, also known as the Mother of Demons, ooh, I like this, the Mother of Demons, was a fearsome creature that terrorized the people of Ireland. According to the legend, Saint Patrick encountered Coranach at Lough Derg, a lake in County Donegal. Which reminds me that I still don't even know where the monastery is where all this takes place. I need to pick a site. Saint Patrick, armed with his faith and determination, confronted Coranach. He prayed fervently and invoked the power of God to help him defeat the monster. As he prayed, Coranach and her demonic offspring attacked him. Ooh, this is such a cool story. However, St. Patrick's prayers were so powerful that they weakened Coranach and her minions. In the end, St. Patrick was able to banish Coranach to the depths of Lough Derg, where she could no longer harm the people of Ireland. This victory further solidified St. Patrick's reputation as a powerful and holy figure in Irish history. Ooh. Up from the puddle. Caps lock. I am Coranach. How do I do like quotations within a quotation? I don't even know. Maybe I can do just italics or something like that. Yeah, probably italic. Italics. I am Coranach. The monster thundered. I am the mother of demons and my minions will kill you. Maybe that's too early. And you are my lunch. No. I am the mother of demons. Yeah, that's what I figured. Yeah, it's like these little, but I think italics also probably work, and it adds even more drama to it visually. At least that's how I would do it in Dutch. I am the mother of demons, and you are toast. No. Oh, I'm going to do a little conversation. I am the mother of demons. And who are you to disturb me? I shall dip you in ketchup. kids looked I don't have to explain what the kids do. You can imagine that. Thai. Saw how this is great. I love that in the first chapter we're immediately introducing like this famous St. Patrick story, talking about signaling what the book is about. Oh my god. I am the mother of demons, and who are you to disturb me? Chocolate sprinkles. That's if it were in the Netherlands. There would be chocolate sprinkles, yes. The girl. Why not just have AI write it? Because this is way too much fun. Yeah, that's always beyond me why people would write books with AI. I mean that you use AI for like an analysis of like get the improve the grammar and stuff. That's one thing, but just like apparently Amazon is inundated with these completely AI generated books. It's like, yeah, I love this so much that you couldn't pay me for having a computer write this. That little girl who now I need to tie saw how the children are looking. Oh. So I often have this when I'm writing, when you're writing dialogue. What I try to always do is to intersperse little cues, like within. I don't like to have just dialogue. I just finished reading the the um, the Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. Everybody told me, "Oh, it's such an amazing book," and so I was reading that earlier today. And one of the things that I really couldn't stand was how the like 2/3 of the book is just dialogue, 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 dialogue. You barely get any cues as to what is happening. Um, and I noticed that I write very differently. I want to constantly give people like a mental image of what is happening, and if it's just dialogue, 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 it gets very boring. There's just not enough happening. Uh, Yeah, I know the stream is a bit too blurry. I apologize. I could probably invert this. Let me try that. How do I get to the window here? I think if I do this, is this better? Maybe if I make this smaller, like I can move the window around. I'm still figuring this out. No, then I shouldn't put that there. Oh, wait. Yeah, where am I going to place myself? I'm going to put myself here. Is this legible? Probably not, because I'm writing like in 11 point, which is kind of small. I don't know if I can make this any bigger. What happens if I press this? Okay. I can't make it any bigger. It's better. Okay, so this is the story. So this is the prologue. I've only written one paragraph. Not much. And I've been streaming for an hour, so I need to wrap things up because I wanted to keep it to an hour. We'll see that we'll consider this a test run, right? And at least I've got this great idea for the opening scene. So I don't have to write 3,000 words a day. And some days I will, but sometimes the win is just to have this very cool idea for an introductory scene. But this is already so much better, because here's how the story initially started after the prologue, and it's so cliche. I'll just read it here. This used to be the first introduction to the main character. The sound of the bell disrupted the soft, regular breathing and snoring in the dormitory. The bell ringer was greeted with groans and grumbling as he made his way between the mats on the floor where the monks and novices were sleeping. Tai turned on his side, yawned, and opened his eyes. He stared straight into the blue eyes of a large bearded face of the monk lying next to him. "Well, look who is awake in time for a change," the monk grinned. "I hope you slept well and that my snoring didn't keep you up. It's an important day for you." He sat up, scratched his curly red beard, and stretched. "That is, if you have decided to apply for the admission tests, of course. Have you made up your mind?" Tai rolled on his back and looked at the ceiling. "I don't know, Brother Flan," he sighed. "I really want to be a scribe like you one day, but I don't think I'm ready. I've only been a novice for a year. I heard the tests are grueling." So this is all going to change, because he doesn't want to do the tests. And it's actually Brother Flan, who is already a scribe, who is going to try to convince Tai to go for the tests. But Tai doesn't want to, because he feels it's risky, it's dangerous, he might fail the tests. He needs to take care of his little brother. That's what matters. So Tai here in this version says, "I heard the tests are grueling." So he's just afraid to pass the tests, which is kind of a lame excuse. And then Brother Flan, "Well, I managed to pass them when I was your age, so why wouldn't you be able to?" Brother Flan smiled. "I just know you have it in you." So I want Brother Flan to really have faith in Tai. So Brother Flan is like Hagrid in this story. Is a really, really nice monk and very think Hagrid but with a red beard. Tai sat up and tried to rub the sleep out of his eyes. "I wish I had your confidence. I have no idea what to expect, and that makes me feel anxious. Is there anything you can tell me?" Brother Flan scratched his belly and shook his head. "I'm sorry, Tai. You know I can't. We scribes are all sworn to secrecy about the selection process for new scribes and about our work on the Codex and the Scriptorium. There's a lot of information dump. If any of those secrets would reach the wrong people, it could put every one of us in jeopardy." "I understand, Brother Flan," Tai sighed. "It's just that I think I am no match for the other candidates. I heard the abbot will only admit 3 candidates this year, and almost all novices have enlisted, including the Selleck twins." Those are the evil twins. You know how much the abbot favors them. I wonder if I even should have enlisted. Now, keep telling yourself that and you'll never reach anything. The large monk rolled up his woolen bedsheet. True, you may not have had expensive private tutors like Seamus and Sean. Those are the twins. And you don't have rich parents in good graces with the abbot like them. He pointed at Ty's chest. But in there beats the heart of a true story mage, and that's quite a powerful gift, you know. He stood up and smiled. Time to wash up and get to the chapel. You don't want to anger the abbot again by being late. Not today. So this is like a really early version. Yeah, a lot needs to change there, but I'm going to keep it for now. Ty scanned the dormitory until his eyes rested on a small figure under a blanket. There he is, he said to himself as he walked across the room. He gently shook the shoulder of the young boy still fast asleep. I know you couldn't hear the bell ringer, but it's time to get up, little brother, he said as the boy opened his eyes. When his brother looked at him confused, Ty pointed at the door and folded his hands in prayer. The boy nodded and stood up. He started coughing as a draft of cold air hit his lungs. Easy now, Brendan, Ty said while putting his arm around the boy. Easy now. Let's get ourselves ready. Ty splashed his face with the ice-cold water from one of the buckets and shivered. Even though it was spring, the monastery still cooled down quite a bit during the night. His brown woolen tunic felt warm and comfortable. He covered his head with a cowl and followed his brother and the other novices outside. The freezing air outside hit his lungs as he walked down the path that connected the dormitory to the chapel. Sunrise was still hours away. Ty heard his little brother cough violently. Silentium! The bald novice in front of Ty hissed. He turned around and looked at Ty with contempt. Your brother should stay in bed if he's sick. If he's going to cough through morning prayer again, I'll report the both of you to the abbot. Ty wanted to say something in defense of his brother, but bit his lip. It's the cold air. I'm sure it will improve once he is inside, Brother Seamus, he replied. Ty tried to shake his anger. No use confronting the twins at this hour. It will only cause a ruckus, and he knew they would be the last ones to face any consequences, seeing how much the abbot seemed to like them. Ty sighed and looked up. Millions of stars were quietly twinkling above him. His heart jumped when a streak of light briefly flashed across the sky. A star falls, a wish is born, he remembered his grandmother telling him when he and Brendan came running inside the house after they spotted one during a stargazing session in the yard. She had been the heart of the family, and while his parents were working in the fields during the day, she would tell Ty and Brendan stories of little creatures that lived in the woods, planting seeds during the day and shepherding fireflies at night. Those fireflies turns into stars when they grow up, she explained, and the goddess Eriu uses them to speak to us. If a star falls, she grants you a wish. Ty had always wondered how his grandmother effortlessly combined the beliefs of her ancestors with those of the Christian faith their family had embraced. But maybe a wish was just a form of prayer. That my little brother might heal, Ty whispered, hoping his grandmother would somehow hear it up there in heaven. He bumped into Seamus in front of him, who had suddenly stopped near the entrance to the chapel. Little Brendan stood on the threshold, bent over in another coughing fit. Ty felt the sharp pain of the bony elbow of the bald novice in his ribs, bald in shaved head. Watch your step, you dumb peasant, Seamus sneered, and keep that little brother of yours away from me. If he is contagious and I get sick too, I'll make sure that both of you get expelled from the monastery. Ty felt his cheeks turn red as anger flared up in his chest, but he gritted his teeth and swallowed. I'm so sorry, Brother Seamus, he replied. I wasn't paying attention. My brother... That's why you will fail the test again, you idiot. Sean and I will make sure of that. Again, older version. This needs to change. He turned around and followed his twin brother into the chapel. Ty rushed to his little brother. Are you okay? He signed. Brendan nodded and took a few deep breaths, only to start another coughing fit. Tai put his arm around him and felt his brother slowly calm down. He looked up to the sky. Not much help from the heavens today, he thought. Don't let them get to you, Brother Flan whispered as Tai sat down next to him on the wooden bench in the chapel. They're spoiled brats. Tai nodded. I know I'm supposed to love my enemies, Brother Flan. That's actually the gospel of tomorrow. But these two make it so hard. Brother Flan grinned. But even Jesus got irked by the sons of thunder, remember? The two brothers had wanted to call down fire from heaven to destroy a Samaritan village that did not welcome them, but Jesus had rebuked them, Tai remembered. Okay, that's a little bit on the nose there. I don't want to do Bible course. The sound of a small bell was followed by that of the creaking side door that opened. All rose as the abbot entered. The abbot's dark eyes pierced at the monks from under his black eyebrows. He was counting to see if anyone's missing, Tai knew. He had been disciplined so many times for arriving late and could still recall the pain of the floggings he had received. But the cruel smile of the abbot while he administered the flogging stung more than the punishment itself. One time the abbot had ordered him to lie face down on the cold stone floor of the chapel for 3 hours because Tai had fallen asleep during morning prayer. And this man was going to decide his fate later today. Tai shivered. Actually, there was a punishment that they used to do. Like, monks would be forced to lay on the cold floor for hours. At the end of the prayers, the abbot rose and turned towards the monks. As you know, in the following days I will choose those who will prove to be worthy of joining the esteemed scribes. I have prayed for all candidates that the Lord may richly bless you in your efforts during the tests, and may grant you humility and obedience if I will reject your application. And this year you will need this, because only 3 of you will receive the coveted blue habit. He gestured towards the monks in dark blue habits on his left. These brothers are the heart and soul of our monastery. Pray for their work on the Codex, and for the 3 candidates that will join them in this blessed labor. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. That needs a lot of change. Anywho. So, this is just a gist of kind of what I've been writing over the past, 2 weeks now? And it goes on and on. But, yeah. This is still a long way from being a consistent narrative. I really love Orla and Neve. Orla and Neve are siblings. They are sisters at the nunnery. And they used to be much more likable than Tai, but I think with this first chapter that I started today, that's going to help a lot in making Tai much more sympathetic. And then you have the abbess. Is that how you pronounce it? So it's the nun that leads the the other nuns, and she's terrible too. But she's not corrupt. She's actually going to have a very important role in the as the secondary story. She's going to be the lead in the secondary story. So, and she has a story. So we've established that the grandmother of Tai and Brendan actually still has like pagan beliefs, because this is all taking place in 6th century, and of course Patrick was only a century before that, and so a lot of the people that we will meet in these stories are basically just the first generation of converts, or in Tai's case it's the second generation, and that makes it really fun to play with, because wherever they go they will encounter all these druidic beliefs and like ancient forms of storytelling, and that's something I'm going to play with a lot. So you of course have the story mages from the monastery, but then there are other forms of story magic as well, and they will have to somehow relate to that, and it's going to give tension, but also there's so many cool ideas in this story. It's just that I sometimes think that it's so much. And how am I going to make this all into a coherent, fluid story? And can I keep it? Can I keep the book a reasonable size? Because at first I was like, I'm not going to write like what a lot of epic fantasy writers do. It's write 120,000 words or something like that. I don't want that. I want a book that you can read in a couple of days, because those are the books that I like to read myself. I don't want this to be like another like Brandon Sanderson type of book. I'd rather have a story that has a lot of speed, like a page turner, and then I can write a second story and a third story, because I've already got some ideas, at least for it. No, actually, I now have ideas for 2 more books. I also came up with that this morning. It's insane. While I was doing my running training, I had another idea. So the second book is all going to be about Brandon. Because Ty thinks he needs to protect his little brother, and it will turn out that his little brother is one of the most powerful story mages that the world has ever seen. Even though he is often sick and he is deaf, but he has an incredible capacity for story magic, because in his dreams he can conjure up his way of storytelling is through dreams, inspired dreams, of course. And this little boy dreams about becoming a navigator. He wants to go on a boat and explore. That's what the second book is going to be. And because the second book is all going to be about Brandon, and obviously this is going to mirror Brandon the Navigator, which is another big important saint in Irish early medieval history. So I'm going to do kind of like a story that is inspired by Saint Brandon. And I'm even wondering, should Ty survive this first book? Do I actually need him in the second book? I don't know. Or maybe, no. I don't want to kill off my main character. I think what will happen is that Brandon will become the new abbot. He is going to be like the Luke Skywalker. He's going to basically reform the monastery. Oh, reform the monastery! That's what I'm going to do. Yeah, okay, I need to make a note. Yes. It is slightly anachronistic because most of the monastery reforms took place in the 11th century. But we can still do something about the monks being complacent. So Ty will become the great reformer of the monastery, bringing back balance with Orla. So one of the issues in the story is that we get introduced to this book, but we've got this secondary female character, and she is very frustrated by the lack of the women almost have no say in whatever happens around story magic. And then so she's going to be a bit of a mirror of Saint Bridget. And she discovers with Neve that there is this myth about a magical harp, like a musical instrument. And in the very beginning, in the genesis of this story magic, the words and the music always went together. And at one point, they got separated, which is, of course, a metaphor of the rift between men and women in this monastic structure. And then that is also something in the book that I want to highlight, because Saint Bridget is, so this is not that I want to do something modern in the Middle Ages, but Saint Bridget, when she built her monastery in Kildare, that was actually men and women. So you often see this. In the Middle Ages, there was actually much less of separation, and the women had a very important leading role in the church at the time. And I want to kind of have that in my story as well, because it's something that people don't know, and I think it's very important for us today, something that we can learn from. So, but in order to make that point, I first need to put the men and the women in this situation where there is not equality and the women are actually subservient to the man. So anyway, I think they're pretty good. There's pretty good historical, not, I wouldn't say evidence, but there are historical underpinnings for this approach to the story, which is something I'm always concerned with, because I want this story to be more than just a fantasy. Anyway, this is a little peek inside my mind. Thank you so much for being my body doubles today. I know this is maybe not the most riveting type of live stream, but it did work. I had some good ideas thanks to you. Otherwise, I would probably have just played video games all night long. So thank you so much for joining me on this live stream. What I will do is, if you subscribe to the channel, there's this bell icon, and I think if you click that, when I go live, you will get pinged by YouTube. At least that's how I think it works. So, because I'm not always writing in the evenings, I will try to do this. Like, for instance, what would work? What? I cannot speak anymore. What would work for me is, for instance, always write between 7 and 8. Like, have 1 hour where I do a live stream. But oftentimes I also write early in the morning at 6 o'clock in the morning. I could also stream that, so other people could watch. Because, of course, with YouTube, there's always someone who's up. So I might actually try that. What kind of video games do I play? I've currently been playing a lot of Valheim, which is really wonderful. It's very relaxing. I listen to audiobooks and I play a video game while I do that. I have not tried Marvel Rivals. Actually, I read about that just the other day, wondering what it was. So I might check that out. I heard it is very popular. Yeah, so Valheim, it's fun. It's like, it matches the kind of books that I'm listening to. So, although it's a kind of more a Viking game where you build stuff, but it is kind of generic, old world stuff. And so I was listening to The Assassin's Apprentice. I finished listening to The Assassin's Apprentice while playing Valheim earlier today. Yeah, I might try it out. Thank you so much for... Yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll just stream whenever when I'm at my computer. This is a good test. So thanks a lot. And have a wonderful rest of your weekend. And maybe we'll see each other tomorrow. Yep. All right. This was fun. Take care.